"Can I stay for
You
one
have
night?"
no right
the
to be
Apache
here.
girl asked. The rancher
This land
murmured.
belongs to
"Then
us,
where do
not
I
you."
sleep?" On the edge of a quiet ranch, a man worked diligently, finishing his daily chores. He was a rancher, a man used to silence, to the steady rhythm of his land, and to the kind of solitude that many would find lonely. The wind carried the faint smell of dry grass and dust, rustling through the old wooden fence posts and the scattered bushes that dotted the wide-open land. His hands were rough from years of work, but they moved with a practiced ease, handling ropes and tools with confidence. The ranch was more than just his livelihood. It was his home, his refuge, the one place where he felt a connection to the earth and the creatures that shared it. As he wiped the sweat from his brow and adjusted his wide-brimmed hat, a sound caught his attention. It was subtle, almost like a whisper carried on the wind, but enough to make him pause. From the corner of his eye, he saw movement, a figure approaching along the dusty path that led to the ranch. At first he thought it might be a traveler, perhaps a wanderer seeking a short rest. But as the figure came closer, he realized it was a young girl. Her clothes were simple, worn and dusty from the long walk. She moved with a quiet grace, her steps cautious, almost hesitant, as if she were not used to strangers or the possibility of being welcomed by someone outside her world. The girl stopped at the edge of the ranch, her eyes meeting his. There was a depth to her gaze that spoke of experiences beyond her years, of a life shaped by challenges, and yet there was also a vulnerability that tugged at the man's heart. She took a small, steadying breath before speaking, her voice soft but clear. "Can I stay for one night?" she asked, her words almost blending with the gentle sigh of the evening wind. The rancher's brow furrowed slightly. He had lived a life of routine and solitude, where visitors were rare and unexpected ones even rarer. His first instinct was caution, a natural response to the unknown. But there was something in her voice, in the way she looked at him without fear or demand, that made him pause. The silence stretched between them for a moment, filled only by the faint sound of distant birds returning to their nests and the whisper of the desert wind. Finally, he murmured almost to himself, "Then, where do you sleep?" The words were more a question of habit than curiosity, yet they carried the weight of a tentative invitation. The girl's eyes flickered with relief, and a small, almost imperceptible smile appeared on her lips. She nodded slightly, acknowledging the unspoken understanding that had passed between them. The rancher turned and gestured toward the barn, an old wooden structure that had weathered countless seasons. Its walls were sturdy but worn, filled with the familiar scent of hay, animals, and the lingering warmth of countless nights spent tending to the ranch. It was not luxurious, nor was it spacious, but it was shelter, a temporary haven in the vast openness of the desert. As she followed him, the rancher took a moment to observe her more closely. Her hair was dark and fell in a simple braid down her back, and her eyes held a quiet intelligence, a reflective calm that seemed unusual for someone so young. Her hands, though small, were calloused in places, hinting at a life of responsibility and work. He could sense that she was not merely seeking shelter from the night, but also a brief reprieve from a world that had demanded much from her too soon. Once inside the barn, the rancher led her to a corner where he had cleared a small space. He spread an old blanket on the floor, the fabric rough but clean enough to provide comfort. The girl lowered herself onto it gently, sitting cross-legged and looking around with curiosity and gratitude. The barn smelled of hay and earth, a familiar grounding aroma that immediately gave her a sense of safety. She glanced at the rancher, who had returned to his work, feeding a few animals and checking the tools. His movements were precise and calm, and the girl realized that this man's life was one of quiet discipline, of routines built on years of care and dedication. Outside, the desert was beginning to darken. Shadows stretched long across the sand and rocks, and the first stars began to twinkle faintly in the vast, open sky. The wind carried a coolness now, brushing against the barn walls and rustling the scattered hay. The girl shivered slightly, not from cold but from the weight of uncertainty and the unfamiliarity of her surroundings. The rancher noticed and offered a simple, quiet assurance. He fetched a small lantern, lighting it so that the soft glow filled the space. The light cast warm shadows, turning the barn into a cozy, protective cocoon against the vastness of the night outside. They shared a simple meal, nothing fancy: bread, some cheese, and a little stew the rancher had prepared earlier. Words were few, but each action carried meaning. The girl ate slowly, savoring the warmth and sustenance, while the rancher watched her with a quiet attentiveness. There was no rush, no expectation of conversation, only the presence of two people sharing a moment of calm in the middle of a wide, often harsh world. The silence was not empty. It was filled with the gentle rhythm of their breathing, the faint clinking of utensils, and the soft, steady movements of the barn animals settling down for the night. As the evening deepened, the girl spoke in small, hesitant sentences. She told the rancher her name and a little about her journey to this place. She spoke of her village, of the desert she had crossed, and of the challenges she faced along the way. Her voice was quiet but steady, carrying a mixture of pride, courage, and a hint of sadness. The rancher listened without interruption, feeling a connection forming. It was remarkable, he realized, how a single night and a simple question, "Can I stay for one night?" could lead to a meeting that felt so significant, so deeply human. The hours passed and darkness fully enveloped the desert. The rancher tended to his final chores, making sure the animals were safe and the barn secure. He moved slowly now, the day's fatigue evident in his posture, but there was also a sense of contentment. This night, unexpected as it was, had brought a quiet companionship he had not realized he was missing. He returned to the barn, sitting quietly near the girl, watching her as she settled onto the blanket. She closed her eyes briefly, exhaustion finally catching up with her, yet there was a sense of ease in her posture, a trust that she had not shown at the start of the evening. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, filled with the sounds of nocturnal life, the rustle of small animals, the distant call of an owl, and the whispering wind that carried secrets across the sand. Inside the barn, warmth and quiet companionship created a small world of safety and understanding. The rancher reflected on the day, on the paths that had led him to this moment, and on the unexpected visitor who had stepped into his life, even if only for a night. As the girl drifted into sleep, the rancher remained awake a while longer, keeping watch. He realized that life often brought surprises in the form of strangers seeking shelter, and that compassion and kindness could create bonds that transcended backgrounds, ages, and worlds. That night the barn was more than a shelter. It became a place where two lives briefly intersected, leaving an imprint on both of them, a memory that neither would forget. The night deepened, stars scattered across the sky like tiny jewels, and the desert breathed around them. The rancher finally leaned back against the barn wall, a quiet smile touching his lips. He understood now that sometimes the simplest question, "Can I stay for one night?" could open the door to extraordinary moments of connection, trust, and humanity. And as he closed his eyes, he knew that tomorrow, and every day after, the memory of this evening would remain with him, a reminder of the small, beautiful ways lives could meet and touch, even in the vast emptiness of the desert. The first night passed slowly, filled with quiet movements and soft breaths. The barn, which had felt unfamiliar when the girl first entered, now seemed to embrace her with a gentle warmth. Outside, the desert lay silent beneath a blanket of stars, the wind carrying the faint, distant howl of coyotes. Inside, the young Apache girl stirred, listening to the soft creaks of the barn and the occasional shuffle of the rancher moving about. She had not slept well, not because of fear, but because the world around her was so different from the life she had known. Yet there was a comfort in the gentle routine of this quiet man who had offered her shelter. Morning arrived slowly, brushing the desert with soft shades of gold. The rancher was already awake, performing the small tasks that marked the start of his day. He checked on the animals, refilled water troughs, and tended to the fences. His movements were calm, steady, and deliberate, a rhythm he had developed over years of solitary work. When he noticed the girl stirring on the blanket in the corner of the barn, he offered a quiet nod. "Morning," he said simply. She returned the greeting with a shy smile, her eyes still holding traces of sleep and uncertainty. He gestured toward the small kitchen area of the barn, where he had prepared a simple breakfast: bread, a little cheese, and a cup of warm coffee for himself. The girl watched him carefully, unsure of the customs in this place, but eager to learn. The rancher broke the bread and handed her a portion. "Eat," he said. "You'll need strength for the day." She took it gratefully, savoring the taste, simple though it was. It reminded her of home, though in a different way, a reminder that food could be comforting, not just sustaining. As she ate, the rancher moved about, tending to the chores that required immediate attention. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a rhythm that needed no words. The girl felt her anxiety slowly melt away as she observed the steadiness of his actions. He was not rushing. He was careful, thoughtful, and present. It was a lesson she quietly absorbed, that patience and attention to small tasks could bring a sense of peace and control in a world that often felt unpredictable. After breakfast, the rancher suggested she help with small tasks around the barn. She was hesitant at first, unsure if her presence was welcome in his world of routine and labor. But when he showed her how to stack hay, check the water for the animals, and sweep the barn floor, she found herself absorbed in the work. There was satisfaction in simple labor, the feeling of accomplishment in completing a small task, the understanding that her hands were useful and that her presence mattered. The rancher watched quietly, occasionally offering gentle guidance, never criticism. He recognized the girl's natural intelligence and her ability to adapt, and he admired the way she moved, careful and deliberate, yet confident. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, they paused for a brief rest. The girl looked outside at the vast expanse of desert and felt a sense of wonder mixed with longing. She had traveled far to reach this place, and the journey had left its mark on her. Yet here in this barn, she felt a sense of safety she had not known for many days. The rancher noticed her gaze and asked softly, "You've walked far, haven't you?" She nodded, her eyes reflecting memories of the dusty roads, the sun beating down on her, and the nights spent under open skies. "Yes," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Far, very far." The rancher didn't press further, sensing that some stories were not meant to be shared all at once. Instead, he simply nodded, offering silent support. There was a mutual respect forming between them, a bridge of understanding built without many words. The girl felt that, for the first time in a long while, she was not alone, and that someone saw her not as a burden or stranger but as a person worthy of care and attention. Later, as the sun reached its peak, the rancher suggested they go outside. The desert was harsh in the midday sun, but he had a shaded area near a small grove of trees where they could sit and rest. They carried buckets of water and small tools, making the task a shared effort. The girl listened intently as he spoke about the land, the animals, and the importance of caring for both. He explained how the desert could be unforgiving, but that with patience and observation, it could also provide life and beauty. She absorbed every word, realizing that there was wisdom in his experience, and that his guidance was a gift offered without expectation. As they sat in the shade, the girl began to open up more about herself. She told him stories of her family and her tribe, of the traditions she had grown up with, and of the challenges they faced in a world that often seemed indifferent to their struggles. Her voice was calm, yet carried an undertone of resilience, a quiet pride in who she was and where she came from. The rancher listened, genuinely interested, asking questions not out of curiosity alone, but out of a desire to understand her world. He realized that these stories were more than tales. They were lessons, experiences, and a window into a life that was different yet equally meaningful. The girl's stories also revealed the fears she carried. She spoke of times when she felt alone, when the world seemed too large and harsh for someone so small and vulnerable. But she also spoke of moments of joy, laughter, and connection within her community. The rancher could see the complexity of her life, how strength and vulnerability existed side by side. He felt a growing sense of admiration for her courage, and also a responsibility to ensure that this brief encounter provided her with the support and care she needed. As the afternoon wore on, they returned to the barn. The girl helped with feeding the animals, carrying water, and checking supplies. Her movements were now more confident, more familiar with the environment around her. The rancher observed her quietly, noting how quickly she adapted and how much effort she put into every task. It was clear that she was not simply a visitor. She was someone who could contribute, someone whose presence enriched the quiet rhythm of the ranch. In the evening, as the sun began to dip again, the rancher prepared a small dinner. This time, he included some vegetables he had grown himself, along with a bit of fresh bread. They sat together in the barn, sharing the meal in companionable silence. The girl's eyes reflected gratitude, not just for the food, but for the kindness that had been extended to her. The rancher felt a sense of fulfillment he had not anticipated, realizing that helping someone, even in small ways, could bring warmth and purpose to his own life. After dinner, the two of them sat quietly near the lantern, the soft glow casting gentle shadows on the walls. The girl began to speak of her dreams, simple hopes for the future, and the desire to return to her community stronger and wiser. The rancher listened, offering words of encouragement, sharing small insights about resilience, patience, and the importance of caring for oneself while caring for others. Their conversation was gentle, thoughtful, and meaningful, creating a bond that went beyond mere acquaintance. As night fell again, the girl curled up on the blanket in the corner of the barn. She felt safer now, more at home, though still aware that her stay was temporary. The rancher remained nearby, finishing his evening tasks and occasionally glancing toward her, making sure she was comfortable and secure. Outside, the desert was alive with nocturnal sounds, yet inside, there was a sense of peace, of trust, and of a fragile connection that had grown stronger in just a single day. That night, the girl slept more soundly than the night before, her body and mind eased by the presence of someone who cared for her well-being. The rancher, too, felt a quiet satisfaction, recognizing that offering shelter, guidance, and patience could create profound moments of understanding between two lives that had been strangers just a day ago. In the vastness of the desert, with its endless skies and shifting sands, a small barn had become a place of trust, learning, and unexpected companionship, a reminder that even brief encounters could leave a lasting impact on the hearts of those involved. As the night deepened, the rancher reflected on the day. He understood that sometimes life's most meaningful experiences came in small, quiet moments. A shared meal, a story told, a task completed together. He realized that the girl's presence had brought more than responsibility. It had brought insight, reflection, and a reminder of the importance of human connection. And though their time together was short, the bond they were forming would leave an imprint on both their lives, shaping their thoughts, feelings, and actions in ways neither could yet fully comprehend. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. The rancher was already up, moving quietly around the barn, checking on the animals and ensuring everything was in order. The girl, now awake and more at ease, watched him from the corner, a small sense of comfort settling in her chest. Last night had been different from what she had expected. No harsh words, no cold dismissal, only quiet kindness. It was a feeling that warmed her more than the morning sun ever could. The rancher noticed her observing him and offered a small smile. "Morning," he said simply, his voice calm and steady. The girl returned the greeting, her own smile a little brighter than the day before. They had developed a rhythm, an unspoken understanding that came from shared tasks and quiet moments. Though they were from very different worlds, the barn had become a place where distance between them felt smaller, almost irrelevant. After a simple breakfast of bread, cheese, and warm tea, the rancher suggested they take a walk outside. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of desert sage and earth warmed by the rising sun. The girl followed him, her curiosity apparent in the way she looked around, taking in every detail. The rancher spoke softly as they walked, pointing out the paths animals used, the types of plants that grew in the desert, and the small signs of life that often went unnoticed. She listened intently, fascinated by the careful attention he gave to his surroundings. It was clear that his knowledge of the land came from years of experience, patience, and observation. After a while, they reached a small shaded area under a cluster of desert trees. The branches swayed gently in the morning breeze, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting moving patterns on the ground. The rancher gestured for the girl to sit, and they rested there for a while. The quiet was comfortable, not awkward, filled with the sounds of birds, the whisper of wind, and the occasional rustle of small animals moving through the brush. The girl finally spoke, breaking the silence. She told the rancher about her family, about the people in her community, and the traditions they followed. Her words were measured, filled with pride and respect for her heritage. She spoke of the stories her elders had shared with her, the lessons of courage, honor, and care for the land and animals. She also spoke of the challenges she faced, the times when her people were misunderstood or overlooked by the wider world. The rancher listened, captivated by her stories, recognizing the depth and strength in her young voice. As she spoke, the rancher shared some of his own stories. He told her about the years he had spent caring for the ranch, the struggles he faced with the land, and the small victories that brought him satisfaction. He spoke of loneliness, of the quiet nights when only the wind and animals kept him company, and of the few moments of joy that made all the effort worthwhile. The girl listened carefully, realizing that though their lives were very different, both were shaped by hard work, resilience, and a deep respect for the world around them. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from one topic to another. They discussed the importance of trust, of helping others without expecting anything in return, and of finding strength in unexpected places. The rancher explained how the desert taught patience, observation, and humility, lessons that could not be learned quickly or easily. The girl shared how her community valued storytelling, passing down wisdom from generation to generation, ensuring that each person understood the lessons of the past while looking forward to the future. As the day progressed, they moved back toward the barn, carrying small branches and other supplies to strengthen the fences and feed the animals. Working together in silence at times and speaking at others, they developed a sense of companionship that went beyond words. The girl felt a growing respect for the rancher, not just for his skill with the land, but for his quiet wisdom, patience, and willingness to listen. The rancher, in turn, admired her curiosity, intelligence, and the careful way she approached each task. Later in the afternoon, the girl found herself curious about the land beyond the barn. She asked the rancher questions about the hills in the distance, the patterns of the desert, and the way the wind shifted at different times of the day. He answered patiently, showing her how to read the signs of the earth, how to observe the behavior of animals, and how to respect the land without disturbing it. She was fascinated, realizing that even the harsh desert held secrets and lessons for those willing to learn. At one point, they sat on a small rise overlooking the ranch. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a vast landscape of sand, shrubs, and distant hills. The girl felt a mix of awe and humility, seeing the world from this perspective. "It's beautiful," she said softly. The rancher nodded. "It is, and it's alive if you take the time to notice." She thought about her own home, the rivers, trees, and mountains of her community, and realized that every land had its own story, its own lessons to teach. As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, they returned to the barn. The girl helped prepare the animals for the night, ensuring each had enough water and food. She moved with confidence now, her earlier hesitance replaced by understanding and familiarity. The rancher observed her, feeling a quiet pride in her growth over the last 2 days. She was no longer just a visitor. She was a part of the rhythm of the ranch, even if only temporarily. After the chores were done, they sat together near the lantern. The girl shared more stories from her past, simple tales of childhood adventures, lessons learned from elders, and moments of joy that had stayed with her despite hardship. The rancher listened, occasionally asking questions to understand better, offering insights from his own life. The conversation was slow, deliberate, and meaningful, allowing both of them to reflect on their experiences and see the similarities between their lives, despite the differences in their worlds. As night fell, the rancher prepared a simple meal for them both. They ate in silence at first, the comfort of shared presence filling the space. Then the girl asked questions about the rancher's childhood, his family, and how he came to live in this remote place. His answers were honest and thoughtful, revealing both struggles and small joys. She listened intently, absorbing not only the stories themselves but the lessons hidden within them, about perseverance, responsibility, and the quiet courage it took to live fully in a sometimes harsh world. Later, they sat together near the lantern, sharing quiet conversation and small moments of laughter. The girl told him about some of the games and songs she had known as a child, and he chuckled at her animated retelling, feeling a rare lightness in his heart. The barn, once just a place of work and shelter, had become a space of learning, connection, and understanding, a place where two people from very different lives could meet as equals, sharing knowledge, care, and mutual respect. As the evening deepened, the girl curled up on the blanket, feeling safer and more comfortable than she had in a long time. The rancher remained nearby, finishing his last tasks and keeping watch over the barn. Outside, the desert lay silent, the stars beginning to shine brightly across the sky. Inside, warmth, understanding, and companionship filled the space, creating a sense of peace that both of them had not realized they were missing. Before she drifted off to sleep, the girl whispered softly, "Thank you." The rancher nodded, his expression gentle but unreadable, understanding that words were sometimes unnecessary. The connection between them had grown beyond mere kindness. It had become respect, trust, and a shared recognition of each other's experiences. That night, the girl slept soundly, feeling the comfort of having a safe place and someone who truly listened. The rancher, too, felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that sharing stories, experiences, and simple guidance could create moments of profound connection. The barn, bathed in the soft glow of the lantern and the cool night air, had become a space of understanding, learning, and companionship, a place where lives briefly intersected, leaving lasting impressions on both hearts. The next morning, the desert was bright and warm, and the rancher was up before sunrise as usual. He moved around the barn with calm, deliberate motions, checking the animals and the fences. The girl was awake too, her eyes alert and curious, ready for the day. She had grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of the ranch, and the tasks no longer felt strange or intimidating. In the soft morning light, the barn and the surrounding land seemed full of possibility. even as the vast desert beyond reminded her that life outside this small, safe place could be uncertain. After breakfast, the rancher spoke carefully, aware that the day might bring difficult choices. "We need to talk," he said softly, gesturing for the girl to sit with him in the shade. Her expression shifted slightly, a mix of curiosity and concern. She had grown comfortable here, enjoying the quiet routines, the shared work, and the warmth of someone who listened. Yet she also knew, deep down, that her stay could not be permanent. She nodded, waiting patiently, understanding that this conversation might change everything. The rancher began gently, explaining that while she was welcome to stay, his ranch was his life, and it could not accommodate her indefinitely. He described the responsibilities he carried, the animals that depended on him, and the routines that he could not abandon. He wanted her to understand that this was not a refusal, but a reality they had to face together. The girl listened, her eyes thoughtful. She had anticipated this moment, yet hearing the words made the truth more real. She understood that the barn was a temporary refuge, not a permanent home. For a long while they sat in silence. The wind rustled through the nearby trees, carrying with it the faint sounds of desert life, the distant call of a bird, the rustle of small creatures in the bushes, and the soft whisper of the wind itself. The girl reflected on her journey, the people she had left behind, and the responsibilities she could not ignore. She realized that she had been searching for guidance, a place of safety, and a brief connection with someone who could see her for who she was. This ranch, this quiet man, had given her exactly that, even if only for a short time. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I know I cannot stay forever," she said, "but I need your help to find the right way forward. I need to know how to get back safely and who I can rely on." The rancher nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. This was no longer just about shelter. It was about planning, preparing, and making decisions that could affect her future. He knew that guiding her responsibly was as important as giving her a place to rest. They spent the day discussing options carefully. The rancher suggested safe routes she could take, people in nearby communities who might offer help, and small supplies she would need for the journey. He explained how to read signs in the desert, how to find water, and how to move quietly and carefully to stay safe. The girl listened intently, taking in every detail, knowing that her safety depended on both her actions and the advice she received. The rancher, in turn, watched her closely, noting her resilience and intelligence. He was impressed by her ability to absorb information quickly, to ask the right questions, and to prepare herself without fear or hesitation. As the day went on, they moved together around the ranch, gathering the supplies she would need. She learned how to pack efficiently, how to ration food and water, and how to carry tools that could be useful on the journey. Each task was a lesson in responsibility and preparation, and she approached each one with focus and determination. The rancher guided her patiently, offering advice when needed, but allowing her space to make her own decisions. This balance of support and independence helped the girl grow more confident, reinforcing the skills she already possessed while teaching her new ones. While they worked, they also shared stories. The girl told of past challenges, times when she had faced danger or uncertainty, and how she had managed to persevere. The rancher shared his own experiences, times when the land tested him, and the lessons he had learned from both success and failure. Their stories intertwined, showing them both that despite differences in age, background, and circumstance, courage, patience, and careful thought were qualities that connected all lives. They laughed occasionally at small missteps, like spilling water from a bucket or dropping a tool, finding lightness even amid serious preparations. As the afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, a sense of urgency settled over them. The girl realized that she could not linger too long, no matter how much she wished to stay. The rancher reminded her gently that life moved on, and that sometimes doing the right thing required difficult choices. They discussed her route again, going over landmarks, water sources, and signs to look for along the way. He emphasized the importance of patience and awareness, teaching her to notice details that could make all the difference in navigating safely. She absorbed every word, feeling the gravity of responsibility resting on her shoulders, but also the strength that came from preparation and knowledge. Later, as the day cooled, they returned to the barn and worked together to restock supplies, feed the animals, and ensure everything was secure for the night. The girl moved with practiced confidence now, aware of the small routines that kept the ranch functioning smoothly. She felt a sense of pride in her contributions, a recognition that even temporary involvement could have meaning. The rancher watched her, silently acknowledging how much she had grown in courage, skill, and awareness since her arrival. It was clear that her stay, though short, had already brought lessons and experiences that would stay with her long after she left. When evening fell, they sat together near the lantern, sharing a simple meal. The conversation was quieter now, reflective and thoughtful. The girl expressed gratitude for the guidance, the shelter, and the trust the rancher had shown her. The rancher responded with gentle encouragement, reminding her that the world could be challenging, but that careful planning, courage, and respect for the land and people around her would guide her well. They spoke of the importance of family, community, and connection, recognizing that even brief encounters could leave lasting impressions. As the night deepened, the girl prepared to rest on the blanket in the corner of the barn. She felt a mixture of emotions, gratitude, apprehension, and a quiet determination. She knew that leaving would be difficult, that the comfort and safety of the ranch could not last forever. Yet she also understood that she was stronger and more prepared than she had been when she first arrived. The rancher stayed nearby, finishing his final tasks, ensuring that she was comfortable and secure. The barn was filled with the gentle glow of the lantern and the quiet sounds of the animals settling for the night. Before sleep took her, the girl whispered, "Thank you for helping me for everything." The rancher nodded quietly, understanding the unspoken message. He knew that his guidance had provided not only shelter, but also wisdom, preparation, and confidence, tools that would carry her safely forward. The trust and respect they had built over the past days would remain with both of them, shaping their perspectives and their sense of connection to the wider world. That night, the desert was calm and quiet. Stars twinkled brightly across the sky, reflecting the vastness of the world beyond the ranch. Inside the barn, the girl slept more peacefully than ever before, reassured by the guidance she had received and the lessons she had learned. The rancher, sitting near the lantern, reflected on the day's conversations, planning, and work. He understood that helping someone navigate the challenges of life required patience, care, and honesty, and that offering guidance could create a profound impact, even in a short time. The barn, bathed in the warm glow of the lantern, had become more than a shelter. It was a place of learning, preparation, and mutual respect. The rancher recognized that this encounter, brief as it might be, had transformed both their lives. The girl had gained knowledge, confidence, and safety, while he had rediscovered the quiet joy of helping another, of sharing wisdom and guidance with someone who truly valued it. The connection they shared was subtle but powerful, built on trust, understanding, and the acknowledgement of each other's strengths and challenges. As the night deepened, the rancher quietly acknowledged that tomorrow would bring difficult choices, but he felt a quiet sense of hope. The girl would leave as she must, but she would carry with her the lessons, the support, and the trust they had built together. And though the ranch would return to its usual routine, the memory of this time, of shared work, reflection, and care, would remain, a quiet reminder of the power of guidance, patience, and compassion in the vastness of the world. The sun rose slowly over the desert, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. The rancher was already awake, as was his habit, moving quietly around the barn to check on the animals and the fences. The girl, now fully alert, had packed her small bundle of belongings carefully, each item arranged with precision. Today was the day she would leave. Though she had grown comfortable in the quiet rhythm of the ranch and had come to trust the man who had sheltered her, she knew deep inside that her journey must continue. The barn that had become a place of safety and learning would soon be behind her, and the vast desert ahead would test all she had learned in these few days. Breakfast was simple, as always, but this morning it carried a different weight. The girl ate slowly, savoring the warmth of the bread and the soft taste of the cheese, aware that she was saying goodbye to the comfort of shared meals and quiet conversation. The rancher spoke little, observing her carefully as he moved about the small kitchen area, tending to the animals and preparing what few supplies she would need for the journey. There was a quiet understanding between them, a recognition that parting was inevitable, but that the time they had shared would leave a lasting impression. After breakfast, they moved outside to the barnyard. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of desert sage and warm earth. The girl adjusted her small bundle and looked around, memorizing the familiar shapes of the fences, the barn, and the trees that had become part of her temporary home. The rancher watched her carefully, noting the mixture of determination and hesitation in her eyes. He knew that her courage and intelligence would guide her, but he also felt the weight of responsibility for the guidance he had given. He wanted her to leave prepared, confident, and safe, and yet he understood that part of growing up was taking risks and stepping into the unknown. "Are you ready?" the rancher asked softly. The girl nodded, adjusting the strap of her bundle. Her voice was calm, though a faint tremor betrayed her emotions. "Yes, I think I am." They stood together for a moment, the quiet stretching between them, filled with unspoken thoughts, reflections, and gratitude. Neither needed to speak further. The connection they had built over the past days was clear in their shared glances, in the steady rhythm of their breathing, and in the calm confidence they both felt. Before she set off, the rancher handed her a small pack of supplies. Inside were essentials, water, some dried food, and a few tools to help her navigate the desert. He also included a small notebook and pencil, suggesting she keep a record of her journey. "Write down what you see, what you learn," he said. "It will help you remember, and it will guide you if you feel uncertain." The girl accepted the pack with a gentle nod, feeling the weight of both the items and the care that had gone into preparing them. It was more than just practical assistance. It was a symbol of trust, encouragement, and shared understanding. As she adjusted the pack and prepared to leave the barnyard, the rancher took a moment to give one last piece of advice. "Remember what we talked about. Observe carefully, move with patience, and trust yourself. You have the strength to face what lies ahead." The girl listened intently, committing each word to memory. She understood the importance of his guidance, not just for survival, but for growing into someone capable of navigating challenges with wisdom and courage. "I will," she promised softly, her voice carrying both determination and gratitude. With a final glance at the barn, the girl stepped onto the path leading away from the ranch. She paused, feeling a mixture of excitement, apprehension, and nostalgia. The desert stretched endlessly before her, its vastness both beautiful and intimidating. She thought of the quiet barn, the warmth of shared meals, and the calm companionship she had found in the rancher's presence. She also thought of her own family and community, waiting for her return, and the responsibilities that awaited her. Each step forward was a choice, a commitment to face the unknown with the knowledge and confidence she had gained. The rancher watched her leave, standing near the barn door. A quiet sense of pride filled him as he observed her steady steps and determined posture. Though he would miss her presence, he knew that the lessons they had shared, the guidance he had offered, and the trust they had built would remain with her, shaping her journey and future. In turn, he understood that their brief time together had left its mark on him as well, reminding him of the importance of human connection, of sharing knowledge, and of extending kindness and support to those in need. As the girl disappeared into the distance, the rancher returned to his routines, feeding the animals, checking fences, and tending to the land with the quiet diligence that had always defined him. Yet there was a new sense of warmth in his heart, a reminder that even in solitude, connections could form that enriched life, even if only for a brief time. The barn, once just a place of work and shelter, now held the memory of shared laughter, stories, and the quiet growth of trust, an understanding between two very different lives. The girl, moving steadily along the desert path, reflected on her time at the ranch. She thought of the rancher's guidance, his patience, and the lessons he had shared. She remembered the quiet conversations, the shared labor, and the moments of laughter that had lightened their days. Each memory strengthened her resolve, reminding her that she was capable, prepared, and resilient. Though the path ahead was uncertain, she carried with her the skills, knowledge, and confidence that would allow her to navigate challenges and reach her destination safely. As she walked, the desert seemed less intimidating than it had on her first day. She noticed the small details, the tracks of animals in the sand, the patterns of sunlight filtering through distant hills, and the subtle signs of water and life that the rancher had taught her to recognize. Each observation was a reminder of the lessons she had learned, and each step forward was a testament to the preparation and guidance that had prepared her for this journey. By midday, she paused at a small rise overlooking the ranch. From this vantage point, she could see the barn, the fences, and the familiar shapes of the land stretching into the distance. A wave of nostalgia and gratitude washed over her. She whispered a quiet thank you to the rancher, feeling the weight of the lessons and care he had given her. Though their time together was brief, it had transformed her understanding of the world, of courage, and of the value of trust and kindness. The rancher, watching from afar, felt a similar mix of emotions. He understood that guiding someone through a moment of need, even temporarily, was one of life's quiet responsibilities. He reflected on the girl's courage, her curiosity, and the way she had absorbed knowledge and wisdom with both humility and determination. He knew that she would carry these lessons forward, not just in her journey across the desert, but in her life beyond. Their paths had intersected briefly, but the impact would last long after their physical separation. As the day wore on, the girl continued her journey, moving carefully through the desert terrain. She followed the landmarks, signs, and advice the rancher had given her, navigating with confidence and awareness. Each step reinforced the lessons she had learned: patience, observation, respect for the land, and trust in herself. She felt a sense of accomplishment and pride, knowing that she was capable of handling the challenges ahead, even as the vast desert tested her endurance and focus. Evening approached, casting long shadows across the desert. The girl paused once more, looking back toward the ranch, the warm glow of the barn still visible in the distance. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the physical shelter, but for the guidance, trust, and companionship that had strengthened her for the journey. She whispered one final thank you, feeling the weight of their shared time and the importance of the lessons she had received. That night, as she made camp under the stars, she reflected on the journey so far and the lessons she carried with her. She wrote in the small notebook the rancher had given her, documenting the day's observations, thoughts, and reflections. Each word was a reminder of the guidance, patience, and trust that had prepared her to face the unknown. Though the desert was vast and challenging, she felt a quiet confidence in her abilities, knowing that she was not alone in spirit, even if physically distant from the ranch and the man who had helped her. Back at the ranch, the rancher completed his evening tasks with a sense of calm fulfillment. He tended to the animals, checked the fences one last time and settled into the quiet of the barn. Though the girl was gone, her presence lingered in the memory of their shared work, stories, and quiet companionship. He reflected on the impact of simple acts of kindness, the importance of guidance, and the lasting effect of trust and respect. In the vastness of the desert, he felt a renewed appreciation for the connections that life offered, even in brief encounters. As the night deepened, both the rancher and the girl experienced a sense of closure and reflection. The barn, once a place of solitude and routine, now held the memory of a young girl who had brought warmth, curiosity, and courage into his life. The girl, in turn, carried with her the lessons, guidance, and trust of a man who had opened his doors and heart to someone in need. Though their time together had been short, the impact was profound, shaping both their perspectives and leaving an enduring mark on their lives. Under the blanket of stars, the girl slept with a sense of accomplishment and hope. The rancher, tending to his final chores, rested with quiet satisfaction. Both understood that life was full of challenges, but that courage, preparation, kindness, and trust could illuminate the path forward. In their brief intersection, they had learned about resilience, empathy, and the strength that comes from human connection. Though the journey ahead remained uncertain, they carried with them the knowledge that even small acts of care and guidance could change lives profoundly.